Hi everyone, this is my video on AMI Hybrid that I've been promising for a little while. AMI Hybrid is something that myself and a couple of other people have been working on for the past 2-3 weeks, but this goes back a long way. The history of this goes back to the mid to late 90s, where I developed a product called Siamese System. So this is really a rebranding of the name, but it's not the same product. So back then I had this product, it was called Siamese System, and the idea was that Windows was, Amiga, obviously Commodore got bust, and they'd been bust a couple of years, things were a little bit uncertain, and software development was stagnating and pretty much dying, so serious software was not happening, so people still had to carry on working. And what I was trying to do was, as people were moving to Windows anyway, some were going to Mac, but I thought, well, if we could build some way so the Amiga can coexist with Windows and work seamlessly. That was the idea, and Siamese System, I think, fulfilled those objectives. It didn't reach its full conclusion until now, but so let's go through it. So basically, Siamese System was basically a card that you plugged into the PC motherboard. Now, bearing in mind what you would have had, in fact, I'll show you this picture here. So you would have had, for example, if you see that picture there, you'll see there's, I'm pointing in the wrong direction, this is the way it is. You'll see that there's a PC box and there's a 1200 and a big monitor. Now, inside the PC there was this little card that plugged in, and then cables from Amiga, including video serial and sometimes parallel, connected into the back of the PC. So it would have a communication. Now, the idea of the card was that the software can control it and switch whether it was displaying Amiga or Windows, okay? And also at the same time, the Amiga's keyboard input and the mouse input was shared with the Windows machine. So you'd be using the Amiga's keyboard and mouse, and if you was looking at the Windows display using Windows software, you'd still be using the Amiga's keyboard and mouse. You could see the Windows drives on the Amiga's display, and you could cut and paste text between the Amiga and Windows. Now, of course, if you had the Mac emulator on the Amiga as well, you could do the same things. And so basically, the whole point was to make the three main OSs all work together. Now, nowadays, it's easy to do it with virtual machines, but back then there was no such thing. We all had separate computers for separate operating systems, and I was trying to make them work together. Right, so a really clever guy called Paul Nolan, he developed the software for me, and all the communication, etc., and the switching and that kind of thing. James Campbell designed the board, and it was quite successful, this, especially in Germany. They loved it, but I wanted to go further than this, and so I said to Paul, is it possible that we could have the Amiga's display appear on the graphics card? Because I always thought, well, you've got these 24-bit graphics cards inside Windows 95, which had by now caught up with the Amiga, multitasking, 16-bit sound, you know, and really great graphics. So it seemed we might as well use that hardware in there. Anyway, long story short, Paul comes back, develops Siamese RTG System, which was a screen mode. So if we look at this, you can see on the Windows desktop there's 3 windows open here. There's a workbench screen opened up in a Siamese RTG window. There's Cinema 4D, and you can see Image Studio, all in their own windows, all thinking they've got their own graphics display. Now, this worked over serial connection, which, as you're probably aware, is very slow. But because it was done over TCP/IP, you could also run this over Ethernet, which was a lot faster. I mean, a lot faster. In fact, it was faster than data going across a Zorro 2 and Zorro 3 bus, which was surprised us. So, but not only that, the code that Paul wrote was so economical. He rebuilt the complete graphics system on Windows, so he only had to sell the description for the different bits. He didn't have to send a ton of graphics, except for bitmap data, obviously. So that system was fantastic, and I sold quite a few of those. But there was something, it was still not the full thing. I wanted to go further, but there was no way we could do this, or so I thought. Now, this gentleman is Mick Tinker, and I was trying to find pictures of him on the internet, and he seems to have been forgotten in the search engines as a very important part of the Amiga's history. His company, Index Information, I keep forgetting the name, mostly sold Amigas to industrial units like point of sale, that kind of thing, so serious stuff. So he used to sell 1200s in boxes, and CD32s I think they did as well. But then he designed his own custom board, which was this one. It was called the Access board, and basically it was an Amiga 1200 redesigned onto a smaller board, which was amazing. He had all access to all the chips, and he built this himself. And he sold quite a few of them, from what I can understand, but into the industrial market. This is probably why people don't remember him. But he also, some people may remember this, which is called the Boxer, which unfortunately I don't believe it came to fruition. But he was trying to create a new Amiga motherboard. You'll notice on there, I believe they're two Altera FPGAs for people doing FPGA now. He was doing this a long time ago. So it proves out. I don't think it. I think I'm not actually 100% sure if he recreated the chipset or what they're on for, but he doesn't seem to have any other chips on there, so maybe that was the case. Anyway, that's beside the point, but he created this and he was quite important. Anyway, I met him one day in Germany, and he sidled up to me at a developer conference, and he opened up his briefcase and he said, "What do you think of that?" Well, it took me about 5 seconds, if that, once he pulled this out. Now, I've put on here kind of explaining what it all does, but it was just a board with a 6840 chip on board. No, but obviously I get asked this all the time. Well, has it got custom chips on it? No, there's no custom chips. You don't need custom chips, okay? If you're serious, you don't actually need custom chips. So, what this was a 6840 processor. On a PCI card, you can slap in a PC. Now, with our RTG software running on that 6840 processor, using Siamese RTG and mapping the sound to 16-bit data card, could have had quite an amazing system. Now, that's where Gateway came in. When Gateway bought the Amiga, they flew us out to South Dakota. I'm hoping it's maybe in David's new book, but they flew us out to South Dakota to discuss this card and our software, and the plan was to put these in their high-end machines. Now, I realised this was mainly because they liked the idea of their high-end machines being able to run Macintosh software. But obviously we could then piggyback on that with the Amiga software and have access to this amazing, using high-resolution graphics cards, loads of RAM. I mean, the sky was the limit, and then potentially port to x86. Anyway, as we all know, that went a bit pear-shaped, but this graphic I think this graphic does two things. It shows obviously the whole situation with Gateway, but if you read that box at the top there, up there, right at the top left-hand corner, the Siamese RTG was running on this from a 1200 with no hard disk, no fast RAM, and running on off a floppy disk over serial, and it was put in that display. Now, I think you can hopefully understand that it was very powerful. And so you chuck that on a PCI card with bus speed. I mean, it would have been amazing. As a side note, I took this to Stockholm to show people the card. Petro was there. Anyone, all you Petro lovers out there, didn't even want to talk about it. He just wanted to sell Boing Boing mats. Just a little dig. So a great opportunity anyway was missed because Gateway pulled the plug. Things went pear-shaped, etc. I've covered that in David's last book. So anyway, that was the end of that. Stopped. I gave up, moved on. Until recently. Now, before this, I'm not going to go into this, but I got involved with the AROS project because I wanted to take Amiga to x86, and there was AROS. I supported AROS for a few years, and even to this day I still think it's great. But anyway, that's not really to do with this subject. But I want to give, before I go into Amy Bridge, Amy Hybrid, what I want to do is I want to mention a couple of projects that I honestly thought when they came out, I thought they would have been more successful, and or should I say been released. And the first of these, although these are not in order because I think one was before, I think the second one's actually came out first. But the first one's the Alice Project by Trevor Dickinson, Jan from AmiKit, and Ken Burns, I think, does the icons. Between them, they came up with this idea of having a Linux-based laptop. That's why it's called a Linux. Anyway, it's a Linux-based laptop running Linux with an emulator on top with AmiKit. And then one of the things it could do is it had this rabbit hole function that, well, it was uncomplicated, but it was a clever idea. So basically, it could run the host's commands. And I thought this was a great idea. I mean, it's basically what I've been trying to do for a long. I was trying to do 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier. I thought it was a great idea, and I spoke to Trevor. You've got to bring it out. You've got to bring it out for the rest of the world, not just for this laptop. Anyway, this project died on the vine, sadly. There was another one, and I think this was actually out first. This is from a guy called Pascal Papara, German guy, wonderful lad, grown man with a baby. No, I shouldn't say lad. And he was a big fan of AROS, like I was, and he have created a number of products, but one of them was called AROS, and it basically was a similar thing. It was AROS running hosted. If you don't know what that means, look it up. But running hosted on top of Linux, but sharing resources with Linux. So you can see there's a pattern here from early Siamese days. The Amiga seamlessly running with Windows. Here, seamlessly running with Linux. Now, this one actually exists, not like the Alice one that never appeared. This one actually exists, and he shipped quite a few of these, and it's actually quite a good little product, and I think he iterated this for a while. I don't know if you can still get it. Anyway, obviously now I'm trying, because these have kind of inspired me to try and redo what I was trying to do before as part of a long-term strategy, and that is to do, sorry, I'm not allowed to use that one, so we'll call it Amy Hybrid. Amy Hybrid is exactly what it says, but some people say, well, is it an electric car? No. So I suppose the only way for people who think it's an electric car, a hybrid is a petrol engine and an electric engine working together. Okay? Amy Hybrid is an Amiga operating system, and in this case, a Linux operating system working together. A hybrid. Okay? It's much better than the name Siamese system. And what I'm going to go through here is, I'm just going to look at my notes. Okay. So Amy Hybrid is kind of three things. Well, two really. The first is, if you've got an existing Amiga hardware, I've already had this written, but I still haven't tested it, I still haven't rolled it out yet. We've got some software written for Amiga and Linux that allows them to share the Amiga keyboard and mouse, and so you can build the same thing with Linux, okay? And so your hardware can, the idea is to basically stick a Raspberry Pi into an Amiga and allow them to coexist with a video switch box. So the same thing as the Siamese rebranded Amy Hybrid, but that's not what I'm going to be demonstrating here. The next one is where you have a host. Now, this is nowadays we all use virtual machines. If you don't know what a virtual machine is, again, look it up. But basically, what we're doing now is using the Pi. So the first version is going to be on the Pi. This is one. So we've got a Pi. Okay. Now you notice I've got this little card on here, which takes all the all the ports and puts them on the back, okay, and gives you this nice little thing. Now that's going to be able to plug into one of my cases. Now I'm not sure spending nearly £200 on one of my cases for a £35 computer makes any sense, but having said that, you know, by the time you put that on it and you want to put a SATA drive in it, etc., and other bits and pieces, maybe it makes sense, but that's not the real reason for doing it. The idea is so that you can, for £35, what follows the demonstration of what you can do on a £35 2GB version. You do not need 4 gig, you do not need 8 gig, not for the Amiga. Okay, so what you're going to see is running on a 2 gig. I have two 2 gig Pi 4s, and it only works on Pi 4. Okay, and but it's 2 gig. If you want more, great, but you don't need more. 2 gig is fine. That gives the Amiga probably half a gig of RAM. What Amiga ever had half a gig of RAM? And 1.5 gig for Linux to run browsers, that kind of thing. But if you feel you need more, you know, go and buy it. Important point, all the software is open source. The communication between the real Amiga and the Pi is, I've got it, I've not released it. I'm actually looking for a developer that might want to take over from Alistair's work. Alistair's work, he's completed it, but it'd be nice to have someone who would like to take it further. We can discuss. I don't not really want to pay, but I'm happy to. So, do you need some bits? That kind of thing is for how I normally work. So if you're a developer and you're interested in working on that, then if you want to get in touch. And then we can get this released, put it on Git, and make that available for everyone to use. Anyway, let's get back onto this. So, but all the software is going to be open source, and I'm actually making no money out of the software at all. Now, that doesn't mean I won't sell systems with them in, you know, completely built systems, but I'm not selling the software itself. You can everything I'm going to show you, you will be able to build yourself. In fact, just to make it absolutely clear, I made a little dig about the rabbit hole function. It's one command. Okay, rabbit hole is basically one command. On rabbit hole, I think on the Windows one, I think it's called WinServer. I think that's very good. Our Linux command is called host-run. It's just a little command that talks to amiberry. You need amiberry, the latest version of amiberry software on ARM, to do this, but there's a ton of work in amiberry that's been done to make this work so nice, as you're going to see in a minute. So that's it. It's basically one little command, host run. That's your rabbit hole function. We hold a rabbit hole function. Now, what I was going to say was that you can build this into any. Reason I'm saying is you can build this on any Amiga operating system. Okay. So you need 3.1, I think. Really, you need the latest version. You don't need 3.14, but you can still use that as long as you've got, I think, it might work on earlier versions, but 3.1, say, and using host run, which means that you can. I'm going to go into this. There's no point going too much detail, but you can run it on your own version. So you don't. I'm going to show it with AmiKit XE, which is wonderful. But you can use it with others. I mean, you could use it with quite easily with Coffin OS. You can use it with a standard one of the Magic Workbench, best Workbench, whatever your setup. Just adding that one command and then putting that onto the Pi. You can use that. So, right, let's crack on with the demonstration. Right, so. What you can see here on display is my Raspberry Pi, which is, is there in this little box. Okay, my keyboard and mouse, and my custom keyboard here with Amiga K7. That's kind of irrelevant. The noise in the background is actually my Pi because it's got a little fan on it. Because I'm not overclocking it too much, but I'm clocking it just a little bit over. Let me just turn this around. There we go. Right, so Hopefully I'm going to try and remember not to let this get in the way, but let's go. So basically this is in fact what I'm going to do is, I think best thing is I'm going to shut this down. Okay, so we go shut down, and once it's then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it up and you can see the whole process from boot up. Right, now that's now off. Okay, some pies will turn themselves off, but most pies don't, so you have to switch the power off. And I've got a switch on this, which is quite nice. Right, so let's turn it on now. Now this is the experience, what I'm trying to go for. So let me move over here. Can you still see me? Just adjust this up a bit. Yeah, I can't. Unfortunately, I can't use the other camera because they're both on my HDMI card. So I can't. This is a USB one, so it's not as good a quality as the other one. And I've kept me quite small, but I sometimes think it's nice to be able to see people's faces. That up there is saying it's an undervolt. Now the undervolt, I've actually bought their power supply and it's not supposed to undervolt, but yeah, it does. I've got this clocked at, I found a nice little, I've got it clocked running at 1.9 gigahertz and 600 megahertz on the GPU. There's a fan on it, that's the noise you can hear. They're quite noisy, them little fans, but it is at least keeping it cool. Now what you end up with, I tried overclocking to the GPU to 750 and it kind of makes it less powerful. So I found that on this one 1900 is a nice CPU overclock and 600 is a good one to stick to. It seems to be a nice balance. That's enough of that. Now, importantly, this Pi only costs £35 for what you're about to see, and it is. Now you'll probably find that I will be editing this. Don't think it's because I'm trying to hide things. If it crashes, I don't mind you seeing it crashing. It is actually pretty stable, and the only way I managed to make it crash is a specific what seems to be a bug, and we're having that looked at the moment. But apart from that, it seems pretty damn stable. So, but I have to edit because sometimes I waffle too much. Now I've got a list of points I'm going to go through, so I want to show you this. So now you can see it's booted straight into amiga. Now, important thing, one of the things I'm going to be doing is this. Now I can press F12. No, let's click on it. I can press on F12, and here's the emulator. Okay, but I'm going to give you the option of booting into. If I do this, let me just. I'm going to load another configuration. So it's going to be technically two configurations with an option at the beginning. I haven't decided how I'm going to do this. At the moment, I've got it on a switch, so that it'll. Do you know what? What I can do is. Let me show you that. Let's just change this switch. Right. Let's go in and edit this. Well, why don't we just do this? Right. If I open up, go into volumes. Now everything you're seeing is all Amiga. So I have to remember. I'll put this now. Press Environment Archive. In here. There is one called Amos Boot, and if you set here boot Amos, I've got it set to 0. If I set that to 1, save, okay. Probably find it won't work, but no, I'm sure it does. To have a switch, so if I do reset, okay. So what I've done is I've switched a flag in amiga. I don't know how we're going to do this exactly at the moment. I'm not 100% sure, but basically what I want is to give you a chance to go straight into basic. So, but I have to get permission to use Amos. I'm hoping that Francois is going to be happy with this, but you'll see basically what's going to happen. So it starts now. I'm going to try and hide some of this in the early stages, get rid of some of it, here we go. So come straight into Amos. So when you boot now, I do want to try and make the whole thing even quicker. Hide the front, put a nice splash screen, this kind of thing. But at the moment, it's getting it all working. So as you can see now, we're in. Let's load something up. Load that, and then run. Yeah. So basically what we've got there is Amos, and you can boot straight into it. To boot straight into a basic system, if that's what you want to do, and then, you know, be happy, just toggle a switch when you boot next time, so on. Maybe a jump option when you come in. We haven't decided the final layout of this yet, but I like the idea of being able to boot into basic for people. Right, so, and that boosted about 25 seconds. The full workbench takes about 45 seconds at the moment. So let's Control C that, come out of that, and then we'll go into editor, and then what we'll do is we'll quit. Now if you quit this, it'll just continue into booting workbench. Now that doesn't have to be the case. That's what I'm saying, we're still experimenting with this. It might be a case if you just want to boot straight into Amos and not worry about workbench, that's fine. So we're still experimenting the best way of doing this to give you the best experience. Also very important to understand that this is my system. What you see in there doesn't come with it. What you're going to get is obviously the fully licensed. Well, if you build it yourself, it comes with what you set up. Okay, it's not difficult. Remember I said you only need host run and amiberry, and you can do what you like. You don't need me, just ignore me. Build your own systems, not a problem. And that's what I'm hoping people will do, experiment. But if you want something out of the box that's really, really nice, it's going to be, we're going to do a bundle, AmiKit, Amiga Forever, and obviously the software, and probably put it on a once I've got everything sorted out and everyone's happy, especially Francois, I hope you watch this and you let me use Ami Pro. We'll talk about it. I've emailed you, could you answer? Then we will see what we're going to bundle, and then basically you get a package, you get a nice little box, you get all the bits in it, and it comes with an SD card, and you just stick it in a pie and you're good to go straight away like this. Anyway, back to this. So now I'm going to be referencing my notes. Right, now this is a very small thing. I think it's really cool. So basically if you go to digestible anything, open up. Now I'm doing that with the mouse wheel. With most Amigas, I've never seen one where it supports the mouse wheel, but because you're using emulation, completely supports the mouse wheel, which I think is absolutely wonderful. It just makes it kind of seamless. Like for example, if I load up an application, text, I'll show you the script. I did the script on here. I did it in Final Writer. Okay, and then I transferred it across with cut and paste, which I'll come to. So just using the mouse here, look. See, that's a small thing, but it's a big thing, if that makes sense. I really like that. Okay. Oh yeah, cut and paste between applications. Right, so this is really crucial. This is part of SignMe, so you can cut and paste between the Amiga application and the Windows application. So let's load that back up again. Actually, let's get that text. It was silly shutting it down, wasn't it? Now if this is a little bit disjointed, I apologise. I should have really gone through it and kind of put it into some kind of proper order, but I wanted to get the notes down. So let's say I want to cut this chunk here, okay, and then I'm going to go to copy, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the text file again, but you notice I've got LibreOffice in there. So I click. Now you'll notice you'll see just underneath me there is a white pointer. That's the Linux pointer. That's now controlling the Linux side of things. So click on Writer. Okay, and then we just do Control V. Okay, Control V, and it's pasted the text from the other app straight into this. Now you're getting your first sample at the moment of interactions between a Linux application. Now the rabbit hole and for WinUEE does the same thing. Okay, so I'm not saying this is anything new. I mean, yes, I was doing it back in the late 90s. We was doing this, all of this stuff. But other people have done it since, and so this is just reusing what I did back then. But the cut and paste makes a big difference, especially if you want to cut you know, like URLs or that kind of thing. The other thing, let me close this down because you've seen that. You might hear my little son in the background. Right, so for example, if I go to applications, directory open, so maybe we end up repeating. I'll bring to front. It's here. Look, let me shut this down because we're done with that now. Right, we got this. Now, if I click on here and go to home, home is the Linux home for the user account, and so you see I've got now. I'm actually accessing it from the Amiga, so it's seamless, and I can do file transfer between the two. And let's have a look at this file. Yes, I wonder if you can guess where I got this from. So what I've got is an integration. Now at the moment we're kind of hiding Linux as much as possible because we want to make it feel like an Amiga operating system with these extra features. That doesn't mean you have to completely hide it. I think I go through how you can bring Linux back and more coexist, but at the moment it's kind of hiding it because, you know, so that it's mostly an Amiga system. Right, what's the next thing on the list? Okay, yeah, so if I open up shell, this is an Amiga shell, and I type in here now, the key command, I mean, basically rabbit hole is a command that sends a message to the emulator. And so that's all this is doing. Now this is called host run. So if I put host run VLC. Now this will probably expand over time what it does. Hopefully it will do more and more. And I can see my drive's going mad, and now you can see I've got VLC. Okay, now this is the one. Now the reason for showing you this, now I'm going to come back to that in a second. But also now I've also got that. If you go into here, I've mapped it so that under my, where is it? Under video, there you go. I've got all the Amiga ones, but I've got VLC there, and I just click on that. Now what that means is it's an Iconics icon. So if you don't understand what an icon is, in fact, no, I cover this later on, so I'll come back to it. But you can see I've just clicked on an icon. Now, also, if I get rid of that, and if I go to this rabbit hole folder, can you see these? Now, these are the ones I've created icons for, and I popped them in here. So you can see I've got host terminal. Again, you notice that Linux pointer pops up. Okay, and I can type in here. Yeah, so I've got my Linux, close that down, it's gone. But what I can also do, now say for example, you open that up, you've got your Linux terminal here, and you want to do something on the Amiga, you'll notice it's gone because it's pushed it to the back. And if you want to get that back, you press the middle mouse button, and you see that Linux terminal rise, and then you can do Alt-Tab, and you can scroll around the Linux applications, as opposed to when you're in Amiga mode, you scroll around Amiga windows, okay? So that's how you get to that. Yeah, I've already covered when the Amiga pointer is showing. Alt tabs, yeah, I've just shown that, that's okay. Yep, I've shown that as well. Press F. Okay. I've actually shown the Amos Pro boot system, but as I said, at any point you can click F12, bring up the emulator settings, which is AmiBerry. This just shows. Now the guy at the top, Dimitri, oh god, Panakostas. I hope I got that right, Dimitri. He's been wonderful. I got in touch with him. Gunnar said get in touch with him, and so I had a chat with him. Promises were made, and he did the work before I could even start to fulfill my part of the promise. And he'd done all this, and he's done so much work on this, and it's been wonderful working with him. So a little tip, I mean, I've noticed a couple of messages about developers leaving the Amiga community. Do you know why they leave the community? It's because Amiga users take them for granted. Amiga users, only time they communicate with developers is to moan, say the software doesn't work, and it's demoralising. If you communicate with the developer of your favourite application and say, man, I love what you've done, that will go so far. Donating to their Patreon page will also help, but a lot of developers, they just want you to say thank you. Right, just anyway, off my soapbox. Okay, so I bring this up here. Now, one thing I want to show you, this is quite an interesting point. There's a lot of settings in here. Now, if I go to miscellaneous, you'll see here up in the top over here, untrap a middle button. That's the thing that releases the Linux pointer, so you don't see the Linux pointer, or you do see the Linux pointer. Pressing the middle mouse button shows the Linux pointer and hides the Linux pointer. Clipboard sharing, turn that on if you want. You should just leave it on. Allow host run, which is my little rabbit hole application, and they're quite important. But a really interesting one is up here. Because of the way this works, you'll see this CPU idle here. Now, I have it by default set to the center. So basically what it means is the Amiga doesn't hog the processor. If you have it right to the left, it uses about 35% CPU, overall CPU on the Pi. If you go further to the right, it will go down to like 15%. So we're trying to work a way of making this automatic if we can. And I know Dimitri's, I've asked him to see if he can work a way of doing this in real time to see on how much work you're doing. Because what happens is if for example, I'm going to show you a video playing in a minute. If I had that over to the left, the video would be a bit choppy because the Amiga's taking up a third of the processing. And if I run it to the right, it's smooth as you like. So leaving it in the middle seems to be about the best option for some things. Occasionally you want it shoved to the left. It's worth knowing that one. Right, so let's resume. Let's resume. So if I go into now, I want to run VLC. Now let's show you that video running, shall we? Now, I tell you what, no, better idea, just to show you. Right, so let's see some Amiga video. Now, unfortunately, the original version had a copyright strike against, so I'm going to have to turn off the audio on this, but I'm sure you'll know this video. Let's go and grab it. I was going to play a different one, but I've decided against it because, to be honest, I quite like this video. So yes, it's quiet, but the main thing is, so basically what this is on an Amiga side, you can still play your DVD type resolution videos, and they play really nicely. Obviously it sounds good, but I do like this. I do like this video clip. But it's been in other videos of mine, but it wasn't so much a problem with the strike. I'm not worried about the demonetization, but it wasn't letting me go live with it. So what can you do? Anyway, so that's video on the Amiga. Let's move on to nice 1080p using VLC. Just click on it. Well, in fact, we're going to the same place again. You could get it from Rabbit Hole, but let's do it from here. VLC. And I've got a video on here which I won't get a strike from. Big Buck Bunny. Okay. And now you'll notice this should be running nice and smooth. Sounds a bit low. I can turn the sound up. Right, you can see how nice and smooth that is because you're using the GPU on the Pi for what it's good at, which is playing videos. Now 1080, don't ask for 4K. I think you can I'm kind of building this around 1080p because Amigas don't particularly work very well 4K, but the Pi 4 can handle 2 displays, which is a whole different system. We've got to think about it. If this is taken on, then we've got 2 displays we can work with, but that's down the road. Okay. Anyway, so you can see VLC works fantastic. All right, let's come out of that. We'll close this down. So that's VLC. Now, you've already seen Office, but again, if I go into here, or I just run it from up here, LibreOffice. Now, one little tip is I think actually worthwhile noting. To help. Obviously, if it's having to draw the Amiga's display, then obviously it's using processing to make sure it does that. But I found if you run it, if you switch this to full screen, because don't forget it's still a Pi, it's still a Raspberry Pi, so you have to play fair with it. But here we go. We've got this. I don't think we've got. Oh, it's still in there. Look. So we've got a word processor. We can use a normal word processor. There's spreadsheets. There's all kind of. There's the usual Office package. Now, Amigas don't have that. No, you do if you work together. Now what I was going to show you was if I go into audio and sample manager, yeah, it's not actually, I don't know why it keeps telling me that. Right, so I've got a sample in here. And press play. Yeah. There's a bit of a delay there, isn't there? Now, close that down. But say I want to actually work on some 16-bit samples to then bring in. Now, if you plug in a 16-bit sampler into the Pi, you can then do this. So if we go to audio, and you'll notice down here I have Audacity, which is an open source piece of 16-bit software. Okay, right, so now let's open up a file that's in the Amiga. It's one of my flute, it's an Amiga sound file. Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Remember I mentioned that earlier on. I'm just going to, I'm just going to switch, push that to the right so it gives the Linux a bit more. So if I press the middle button, I bring that back up again. Okay, no, I didn't want that, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, right, so that software works quite nicely. No, get rid of that. I don't want that command. Right, let's go through a few bits and pieces. So let's close this down. Let's go into, now you have to take this with a pinch of salt, okay, but what I have done, interestingly, is sysinfo. Right, take this with a pinch of salt. However, what I will say is I found let me press speed. I found the performance actually bears out. Now you'll notice it says what looks like 90. You have to stick a 1 in front of that, so it's 1090 MIPS. Okay, 252 M flops. And it's 975 times the speed of a 600 and 225 times the speed of my 3000. Interestingly, I did a test on another system, an Amiga system, and I ran, it's about 4 or 5 times faster. So I thought, let's run this in Lightwave. So I ran a test. In fact, now I'll show you the test I ran. I'm not going to run through the whole thing, but I went into here and I ran Lightwave, which I really like. So you can see how fast this is. It really runs nice. And if I go, just for the record, you feel free to, if you can get a copy, you can use Lightwave without having the fear of new tech chasing you. They have no problem whatsoever. So if you can get it, fire away and enjoy it. That's from New Tech. I'm not giving it to you though. You have to look around for it. Right, so you can see that's there. Now what I found was I did an animation. I rendered this animation out and I rendered it on the other system. In fact, two other systems. Oh, just one of them, which I'm not mentioning because of the grief. It was about 4 or 5 times faster on this. So rendering this animation just, a lot faster. Right, so let's quit that out. Get rid of that. And now let's go and look. So I know a lot of people, let's try something like graphics. So let's go into, I always like showing brilliance. I think brilliance is wonderful. So we go into brilliance. And again, this has had some tweaks from Dimitri to make this run even better. So let's go to the images and then I'll load up the lagoon. So I'm going to change it to match so I can get rid of that. And now basically, and I can go M. Yeah. So I got brilliance and it runs absolutely beautifully. And if I switch, it's just the other thing. Of course, up here you'll notice I've got 221 meg, and that's actually I cut it back. I can have 512 megabytes of RAM, and the only reason it's limited is because I've got a 2 gig. And if you've got more than 2 gig, he allows you more than half a gig for the Amiga. But Christ, when do you ever use half a gig of RAM? So I've just got it set for 225. I've actually got the graphics. I actually gave the graphics card 128 meg, and he laughed. And that's by mistake. In fact, I think if we go back into the system, I'm not sure if it actually shows you. Oh yeah, it does. RTG. Oh no, I've switched it back to 16. Yeah. We're sticking it. We don't need the 128 meg. But you can run all your other applications. So, for example, AD Pro. Obviously, this runs beautifully. So let's go and find. It does get a bit fussy about some JPEGs. I'm pretty sure this works. No, it is. It's funny about some JPEGs, which is. Oh, actually, I think this one works. No, you don't like that one. There's a number of JPEGs. It's obviously been rendered out in something, and it doesn't like it. But it works great on here. In fact, let's go and find an image. DH0 my software. If I've got anything in here. Have I got any pictures in here? Oh, hang on. Oh, Space Fighter. Is that an image? Oh, frame. So I've got a render screen there. 256 execute. Oh, there you go. There's a frame. Yeah. So what we can do is we can then actually put that as a window. Window on Workbench. Execute. There you go. So lightweight. AD Pro works fantastic. But also there is of course on here. Let's do Perfect Paint. This seems a lot happier with the JPEGs, funnily enough. So if I load now, you can see that I'm running 1920 by 1080p, but it still looks fantastic. Let's load that future one up. No, not that one. Future. There we go. I mean, and then just go back to the Amiga's display. It just all works beautifully. So what I want to show you now is, because a lot of people are going to ask, what else have I got? I've got so much stuff on here. Oh, here's another one I was going to show you. Programming, Amos Pro. I've got it set to come straight in if you want it to boot straight into it, or you could just load it. You know, so examples. There we go. I don't know what this is going to do. Oh, okay. Quit. There you go. Quit. But you see how seamless this is, how fast it runs. Right, let's go into something I particularly like. Well, let's close this down. Not that we really need to close it, to be fair, because I've got so much memory. Oh yeah, if you want to restart, Control Amiga, reboots the emulator, but only the emulator. It's not. Oh, see, because I've got it set to go straight into here. I've got to turn that back, haven't I? So I don't know if that's actually going to be the way it's going to be done in the future, but I think it's quite a nice thing to be able to boot. If you want to do basic, a lot of people would like the idea of booting straight into basic, and Amos is, to be honest, is one of the best, I think. And to be able to go straight into it like that and start coding and just shut down, I think it's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, if the emulator does crash, and it hasn't crashed so far, so in fact, as I said, it rarely crashes. There's one I can make it crash. Okay, and that, in fact, I'm going to show you it crashing just to show I'm not worried about that, just to show you how to get out of it, because it's quite an important lesson. So if I go into here and I whack this to the left, no, if I whack this over to where the default is, which is CPU idle in the middle or to the right, and I do resume. Now normally it works perfectly right, but if for some reason, if you want to go in and do something, now I'm pretty sure if you get this, by the time it comes out, Dimitri's going to fix this. But I'm going to use this as a reason to show you how to get out of it crashes, because you don't want to just kill the system. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to click on, I think eyebrows will do this, and you'll probably find it comes up and it calls me an absolute liar and doesn't crash. No, I'm going to crash it. I am going to crash it. I'm going to push that over to there. No, I'm going to try running something else. I will crash it. Not that one. It just seems to be if you're running internet applications. No, it's not going to die, is it? Oh, really? Come on, break. Go on. You know you want to break? Nah, figures. I don't know why I'm upset because I can't crash it. I think it might be when you reboot it from fresh. So there is, but there's a bug there that Dimitri's aware of, and I know it will be fixed. I suppose the other thing is if I release it in the same format that this is in, technically you can go in and recompile the new version of Amiberry as he upgrades it. But that's subject for another video. I wanted it to crash to show what you do. Right, so I'm gonna shut down the machine, but let's pretend it's crashed. Okay, and I will say this has been very stable, but let's pretend it's crashed. What you do is Control, Left Alt, and then the backspace. Okay, the delete key, but the back delete, not the forward delete, the back delete. Do that, bang. What that does is it logs out the user account, shuts down the emulator, but because when as soon as it shuts down the emulator, there's a command that when the emulator is closed, it will shut down Linux. So now Linux is shut down. Okay. Now again, this is one of those discussions. Now I'm going to turn this off, and then I'm going to start it again. And let's have a bit of fun here. Right, I'm just going to have a bit of fun here. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to see how long it takes to start. Now this is going to, I've got this set to boot straight into Amos. Right, let's press go, start. Okay. Now remember, this is going straight into Amos. And now what I will do is I will work on ways, we're going to try and hide. Now, I haven't mentioned, this is actually running Manjaro 64-bit, which is how we get this performance. We may, I don't know if we're going to move away from Manjaro, because I actually quite like it. If you want to play with it and you want to unlock it, I'll do a tutorial on how you do that. And then you can play with Manjaro Pi. But we may move over to the Raspberry Pi OS for 64-bit, but you really need 64-bit to get the best out of it. Okay, so that's stop. So it's about 35 seconds. Right, so I don't want to run that, and so we quit that, and then when you quit that, that'll now boot into Workbench, and then I will change. Remember the setting. Now I'm probably going to do a little toggle switch, double click on it, or it might be in the boot screen. Do you want to boot to Amos or to the Workbench or Linux? Give you the three options. We're probably going to do it that way. I haven't decided yet, but whatever, it'll be flexible. Let's change this. Let's go into here, open, press, environment archive, scroll down, find my Amos. Now you notice I'm using the scroll wheel, which is wonderful. Rub that out and then save. So I'm having to redo the YouTube one again because I got a copyright strike. Had a great video clip there as well. Anyway, so let's go to Chrome. This is actually Chromium. I've called it Chrome, but it's actually Chromium. And I'm also going to run it full screen. Right, it's already gone full screen now. And I also set the CPU idle to the right, just so it doesn't take quite so much processing for the Amiga's emulator. As I said, hopefully Dimitri will be able to do this, so it's automatic, so it knows when it's, because he knows when it's on Linux app. And we'll see how we go from there. Right, let's just wait for this to come up. Yeah, so I probably, now again, you do have to remember this is a Pi. And I sometimes wonder if my network, because I think I do have problems with my network connection sometimes up here, so again, your mileage may vary. Right, so I'm going to put a little bit of the, yeah, let's put, hopefully I won't get a strike on this one. I'm just going to put it on for a few seconds just so you can see the video and see what it plays like. Okay. It's an advert again. Let's see what the volume's like. Hang on. Let's get that volume up. Okay, so we got an advert. I don't think they give me a copyright strike for an advert, do you? Let's skip that.
The images
Anyway,
in this video are all
do you think
real.
this is any good?
Captured
I
by
shouldn't get a
NASA's
copyright
Mars
strike on this
rovers,
one.
directly
Anyway, so
from
my point is
surface
the
of
browsers
planet.
work okay.
This is the first
And you
time
can do
Martian
YouTube video.
footage has been rendered in
Now,
stunning
and again,
4K
but with the
resolution.
understanding this is a
So
Pi.
sit back, relax,
And the emulator
and
is
enjoy
taking
this
obviously a
journey
little bit
across
of
the surface
processing.
of another
So
world.
you're probably losing about 15-20% processing to the amiga, the emulator, according to where the CPU idle is. Anyway, that'll do. Okay, so that's browse on the web. I'll leave it to you to play with that. Right. I suppose the next thing, now I've noticed my lighting's, I'm bright red here. Look, I've got light over there. So let's do a couple of demos. I just want to run through a couple of demos just to show this works. Now, has been mentioned, I'm probably going to have to drop this down. The audio may be a bit quiet. I'm just going to drop this down a little bit. This is emulation. It's not like FPGA. People have said to me about frame accurate 50 frames. No, it's emulation. If you want that, you need to buy an FPGA, buy a Vampire, one of them great products, buy an Amiga. Yeah, so let me just drop this volume down a little bit. So now you have to bear in mind, of course, this is going for a capture card as well, so it's kind of messing with things, but it's reasonably smooth. In fact, that actually sounds terrible, doesn't it? Oh, I know why. Hang on. Let's put this back, and so the Amiga gets. That's better. So, you know, it's not the best thing in the world for run, but it does run them quite nice. Now, if I go into, for example, another one. Oh, hang on. In AmiKit, they've got a couple of good ones in here. Starstruck. Most of you probably know Starstruck. So I mean, you know, you're running a way above an 060 performance, but of course, when it comes down to the critical timings of the chipset, emulation can go so far, and it does a pretty good job. And I think this is. Sorry about the sound quality. Because it's actually coming out of the speaker and probably in fact, you know what? Let me. This is the only thing when you try to. Now that's coming through there now, so I've killed the audio from there, so hopefully it's going to improve it. But you can see it's running at, you know, like you would expect from an 060. But yeah, so emulation on actual. If you want it, if people are saying, it's got to be timing to 50 hertz, etc., etc. No, go buy a Vampire. Go buy an FPGA based system. If you want to kick ass Amiga emulation, this is the way to do it. Unless you want to build a PC, cool. But yeah, so anyway, there you go. So there's demos. Let me just kill that. And of course, we can play games as well. So let's go and I'll just run one game. Deluxe Pac-Man. Let's load this up. Let me close. Too many things open here. Right. So that should be playing music, and I can see it's playing the music. So F1. Hang on. Let's go into this. Right. Oh. Here we go. So yeah, it plays games. And it actually plays it quite nice. It does actually. I mean, that is actually pretty smooth. Anyway, games. Go on then, go away. Right. And I suppose the final thing then, let's just. I want to show the music playback, and I don't know if this is how well this is going to come across, but you can load up using Linux. You can load up the an audio player, but I actually like the idea of actually doing it from the Amiga. It's just kind of cool, and so I've got some MP3s I've got stored on here. Let's just go. kill it. I'm not that worried about the strike, but it's, I don't want to get any grief. Right, so I think that's covered most things. I'm sorry I've had to kind of chop bits out of the video to put it at the end, and the end maybe was a little bit abrupt, but so that's the demonstration. I'm going to do more of these, to go through, configuring and that kind of thing, and also to show how it's coming along. But I hope you got an overview of this and that you like it. Okay, so I think we've done enough on that. Hopefully you can see that by hybrid I mean it's Amiga, it's Linux, and it's using both. Ostensibly it's really about an Amiga experience, and I personally think it's possibly the best Amiga experience you're going to get on it. Any Amiga hardware can't compete with this. I mean, that's a fact. Not on performance terms. AmiKit normally they've had to do a cut down version for Amigas, normal Amigas, even really fast 060 performance Amigas have to have a cut down version, but this runs it beautifully. So performance wise, I think this is a no-brainer, but the most important thing is it's £35 for one of these. Oh, there goes me light. It's £35 for one of these. I mean, not with this board, but this board comes as a kit with a case for £18, and that's a nice little case with a fan in it. You can overclock it. So £35 for 2 gig. Get the 4 gig if you want. I think 8 gigs is ridiculous. Memory card, I pay about £11 for 32 gig. Get the extreme version, you might as well. And then say £18 for that. So you're talking about £65 in total. As if you want this with a case, but you can just run it with a £5 case. Just run it a bit slower. Don't run it overclock it. But that makes a fantastic little Amiga. Now in my previous one I said, is this the best Amiga ever, when I did it with the Pi 3? And I know people are going to hate me for saying this, but right, proviso, if you're talking about experience, owning hardware, touching Amiga hardware, there's nothing like it. This thing can't make up for that. You just never can. The feeling. However, if you just want to run Amiga software, or you want to run the games, or you want to run the demos, or anything like that, you can't beat this. You just, I mean, don't say PC. Yeah. I've got core 3 gigahertz over there, GTX 1080, cost about £1,000. No, this is £35. So if you want to get into Amiga and you want to play, this is the way to do it. Now there is a new AmiKit XE coming out in August, which is new version. There's a specific version for the Vampire coming, which I'm really looking forward to. It's nice because that'd be great, because it's an official one you can buy with the proper operating system, etc., and that'd be absolutely wonderful. And there's loads of stuff on it. But if you want to, I'm hoping we'll be able to do a bundle like what you've seen here. Don't ask me for the download link to this copy of mine. You're not having it. Okay, I can't do that because I don't want to give away commercial software, even if it's considered now to be abandoned, where I don't want to give it away. So I'm hoping to build a package with, based on AmiKit, but I don't think you can beat this. And is this the best Amiga experience? I think so, yes. And even if it was at £200, yes. I mean, I just think it's wonderful. So there you go. I'll probably, next time you see me, I'll be hanging from a tree, no doubt. But if you do want to have a good Amiga experience, now I think the hybrid system just shows you how well it can all work. Think of the hybrid as an idea. Don't think of it as a product. Just think of it as an idea. Then you'll understand what it's all about. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, my name's Steve. If you didn't enjoy it, I'm RJ Michael. But no, yeah, go out and buy one and have fun with it. Thanks a lot.